Week 6 continues as the top 16 teams in North America continue on their journey to San Francisco. Welcome to the WGLNA. I'm Joshua Gray.
And I'm Randall Holcomb. Last week, some interesting, surprising results from matches. Tonight we get to see if any of that's going to have an impact on perhaps the Cunningham Simp match or top-tier Penguin Mafia maybe changing it up.
A lot of things kind of up in the air after what happened on Tuesday with Timed Out, the team that was on the bottom of the standings taking out Simp. We'll get more into that story a little bit later, but I really enjoy this anything can happen every single night type of play that we're seeing from these different teams. And when we look at the standings overall, you kind of go, okay, a little bit dismissive. All right, these guys are going to be down in relegation based on the performance we've seen mid-season so far. And now they're starting to rise higher and higher.
Yeah, and that mid-section in the standings, everyone is so incredibly close that because you can't play that consistently at the top of your game every single day, sometimes people will be hot and they'll beat an opponent who we otherwise wouldn't think that would happen, throwing all of those predictions out the window almost every week.
These teams have got to be consistent, though, if they want to make it to San Francisco. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happened during Tuesday night's matches for the final scores. First up, it was Top Tier versus Hammer Time. Top Tier went through significant changes to their roster, but still put up one heck of a fight against Hammer Time. In the end, Hammer Time took that victory 5-3. And Timed Out versus Simp in a tiebreaker. Timed Out was able to defeat Simp in the end. That
absolutely blew all of us away. I looked back at the Twitch chat, and I saw all of you were betting Simp. So don't even say you thought Top Tier had it from the beginning. Everyone was surprised.
A lot of lost points on Tuesday. Victoria's Secret fell to Simple Tinkers in a very rare 5-0 victory. And Noble took down Simply Irresistible 5-2. Noble's one of those teams that's starting to build themselves back up at this stage of the season. Okay, let's move on and look at the matches that were not broadcasted. First off, Cunningham's Roulette will be played at a later date, most likely this weekend. Roulette will be playing tonight. They have been traveling in a different tournament in China. Elevate Penguin Mafia 5-1.
Yeah, Elevate, of course, playing much better as the season goes on. Expectations going up, and they're eventually going to have to raise the bar for them for performance.
And hopefully they can stay where they are right now because they're in a really good spot in our standings. Fun Gaming lost to I Love Lamp 5-1, and then Full Potato fell to RBIS in a tiebreaker. And those last four teams, specifically I Love Lamp and Fun Gaming. Fun Gaming has been one of those teams on the rise, trying to shed that moniker, as I like to say, of being known as a camping team. And I would say 90% of the way they've done so. They need a couple more victories and more exposure in order to prove themselves even more. And I think they're more focused on obviously getting the wins. We look at I Love Lamp, which struggled at the beginning of the season, and I think they're really starting to find their footing. That is the same story we can say for most of these teams for their first season.
Yes, many of them figuring out the new format. We're all as new as each other.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the highlights from Tuesday night. The first one is Top Tier versus Hammer Time.
Now, Top Tier brought some surprising lineups. We did not expect this one, the Object 416 lineup, where they tried to bring as many as they could and just rush straight into Hammer Time. But that really didn't work quite as planned. Hammer Time handled the situation beautifully, baiting their opponent deeper into their own defensive formation and then walking them to that crossfire. Once they were there, the limitations of the Object 416 started to work against them, and even though it was costly for Hammer Time, they still came out ahead with 3 tanks alive.
Yeah, still a great fight from Top Tier, and hopefully they can bounce back from the roster changes. Moving on, we have Timed Out versus Simp. Now, Randall, you and I got to go really heavy with this scenario, but the tiebreaker first, even the occurrence of that happening was a complete surprise, and then the end result blew us all away.
And it came down, I think, a lot to just the strategy of Simp and some of the decisions they ended up making. On the tiebreaker, they had a strategy in which they usually would retreat after pressuring the South Cap, but they didn't, and allowed Timed Out to bring the heavier lineup right to their noses and just out-brawl them, which you should not allow to happen. Simp making mistakes, but Top Tier doing a solid job at knowing to keep Simp uncomfortable and keep the pressure on.
A very, very different type of result, first time Simp falling. And the blow is a little bit softened because it was a tiebreaker loss compared to a full loss. But I want to see if that really rattled Simp or if they're going to shake it off and continue to move on.
And I want to see if Timed Out, on the other hand, is going to take that and continue playing well through the rest of the season.
Yeah. Victoria's Secret versus Simple Tankers was that 0-5 matchup. Simple Tankers looked solid enough, and they need to continue to do so as they continue on in the season here. Victoria's Secret unable to get a single battle victory in the series.
It's Simple Tankers just outplaying them. Simple Tankers, one of the teams that we expect to end the season towards the top, in the top 8, at least I do. And they do have some inconsistency issues, but if they're able to play well late into their matches, then they should be fine. It's early in the matches where they shine.
And we'll notice a trend with some of these teams sticking together and gaining these victories rather than spreading out, being caught off guard. And that was happening to Simp. They were leaving those T-32s, for example, on Prohorovka. They were leaving those tanks in those normal positions, not ready for these almost not extravagant, but just slightly out there type of player, quick blitzes coming from some teams. We've seen quick blitzes coming from Simple Tankers, but they're starting to play a little bit more compact when it comes to their tank positions on the map. The last highlight we're going to take a look at is Noble versus Simply Irresistible. Noble, another one of those teams that's bouncing back, and the T-49 performance here on Cliff, when we had Dan Cho join us on Tuesday night, he was impressed to see how the 152mm cannon was used by the T-49 in this running gun type scenario on this map.
And I love the play from Noble. Heads up, risky strategy. You saw Enfield just a moment ago blitz straight through the attacking line of Simply Irresistible to go for the crucial T-49. The tank that on Cliff decides the winner. Who gets the right connections, who can hit more T-49 shells, and who gets that one shot that's going to blow away an M41 or a 1390.
And that happened a number of times, but Cliff is a map that we're not seeing as often this season because teams are feeling it's a little bit too much of a coin toss.
It's too risky.
It's too risky in that sense, but the stats may tell a different story. The intriguing part, too, is the different type of tanks that teams are bringing with the Tier 7s. The Tiger 1 is one of those tanks that teams are bringing. The Tiger 2, not so often. But the Tiger 2 is a fun tank to play. You'd agree.
Oh, it's fun.
Especially if you like fire. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Tiger 2.
Here we explore tank facts about the Tiger 2. The Tiger 2 is named after the Tiger 1, who was named after Shere Khan from the Jungle Book. Its full name is the artist formerly known as Panzerkampfwagen. Wow, this is really German. Tiger Offs B, but it now goes by the Bengal Tiger or King Tiger by the ladies. The tank sports a top speed of 38 kilometers an hour. And, whoa, this tank is on fire. Is someone going to put it out? I don't hear any sirens. Is there a firefighting tank? Would the water be sprayed out of the gun? The Tiger II was first used in combat during the Battle of Normandy and was later used in Operation Panzerfaust, which turns out was not a pork-themed barbecue. It weighed almost 70 metric tons and bolstered 180 millimeters of front armor. The view range of 390 meters allows for long-range fire, except for this guy. Wow, how could you miss that? So if you're ever in the jungle and you come across a King Tiger, make sure to have some fire at the ready. That goes for any tiger or anything else in the jungle.
Everybody, welcome back. I think a lot of people will understand the core principle of using an automatic fire extinguisher, especially after playing a Tiger 2.
Oh, definitely. I mean, nothing is worse than catching fire and just having to sit there in agony, waiting for your reloads that's slower, and then eventually for someone to just get that finishing blow.
Now, there is a change to our first matchup tonight here, folks. Originally, it was going to be Top Tier versus Penguin Mafia. That has changed to RBIS versus Timed Out. So once again, we'll get to see Timed Out tonight after that fresh tiebreaker victory over Simp. RBIS, a team third place from Season 4. We've said that multiple times this season. Does their performance reflect a third place team, or is it too early to tell?
Well, I don't think so. No, I don't think that right now they're playing like that because they are falling in the standings. They're sitting with, I believe, 16 league points, and that puts them about 6th place. So RBIS, where they were sitting high on the standings just the other day, they are now in a very different place.
But that could change even tonight or by Tuesday, they could be higher back in the standings.
Sure.
Moving on to Simp versus the Cunninghams. This would be quite a matchup because Simp, the #1 team, still, despite the loss with timed out, is going to be going up against the #2 team, Cunninghams. Now, Cunninghams are sitting very, very pretty right now. They achieved a tiebreaker victory, though, over Noble, which this sort of dilemma is happening to the Cunninghams over and over again. They'll be behind. They'll fight their way back, but they have to fight their way back to a tiebreaker and then get the victory.
There is that, but we can also give it to some of their opponents for understanding how to play the format and how to take advantage of the Cunninghams in that they need to get as many wins as possible early in the match. If they can do that, then they have a chance of going to that tiebreaker or beating them. Tonight, if Simp and Cunninghams face off, it goes to a tiebreaker. Simp can still establish a strong lead that no one's going to touch. If the Cunninghams do overtake them, though, and win, they're going to have 26 league points, and Simp will have 28, meaning that they're just a little bit closer, making it possible that we could have the Cunninghams coming over. But
yeah,
that is a bit of a reach.
They're chasing for it, though. They're chasing for it, and Cunninghams are going to have to pull out all the stops in this match tonight. Roulette versus I Love Lamp will be our third matchup. Now, Roulette is returning from their tournament travel in China, and we're going to check in with them in the face-off to see how the tournament went. The last time they played, it was a tiebreaker victory over Fun Gaming. They'll play the 3 matches that they've missed, I believe, over the weekend. So the preparation coming from travel is always a little bit difficult to get reacclimated to, obviously, where you live, the time zone change as well. So that's an important factor moving into this match against I Love Lamp.
Assuming they've handled that, they could also have the benefit of having the overseas experience playing against international teams in the live setting where that pressure is on to perform. After studying their opponents and getting the experience of getting to even talk to them or talk about all of the strategy and meta, they could be coming back with something fresh, new, and different.
I Love Lamp currently in 8th place, tied with Simple Tinkers and Simply Irresistible. In their last match, they faced Fun Gaming and had a clean victory, 5-1. The last matchup tonight will be Elevate versus Simple Tinkers. Elevate's currently in 4th place, which is a big deal because this team a week and a half ago was riding about the 9th, 10th area, kind of that mid-tier section, a little bit lower, but they are kind of one of those upswing teams right now. But the cautionary tale is they did this last season. They had a chance to be in 2nd place, I think towards the end. Not the final week, but the second to final week.
They had a strong chance to make it to our finals, but they fell short. Other teams performed better than them and were more consistent. This season, it's taken them a little while to get that momentum, but we're still in that tough group where it's so close. It could just be, a bit of a spark. Yeah. It could be just a high point. We can't know yet until I think we see them face more opponents. Simple Tankers might be a good way to tell where they really stand.
I think it's going to be a fantastic way. If Simple Tankers had a fantastic victory over Victoria's Secret, they're tied at 8th with I Love Lamp and Simply Irresistible. It's Elevate holding their position, or it's Simple Tankers breaking away from that mid-tier tie. Well, that does it for our pregame show. Again, the storylines of these teams will culminate into the playoffs, and then after that, the finals happening in San Francisco in March for a prize pool of $171,000. All these points obviously matter, but this picture continues to get clearer and clearer as we get closer to the end. Thanks for watching the pregame show. Our first match begins after this. Stay tuned.
Всем привет, с вами Совет, и вы смотрите Североамериканский регион.
안녕하세요. 탑티어 팀의 63입니다. 여러분은 WGLN을 보고 계십니다.
Hola, yo soy Baby Halo del equipo I Love Lamp y están viendo WGLNA.
Bonjour, je suis Fat Cobb de Team Full Potato et vous regardez WGLNA.
I'm Laps of Team Simp, and you're watching the WGLNA.
If there's one team that's going to be all smiles tonight, that team is timed out, representing Brazil here in the WGLNA. That victory over Simp on Tuesday sent a shockwave throughout the World of Tanks world. But let's see if they can continue to hold on to that momentum as they face RBIS tonight.
And RBIS is a crazy team. They pull out some off-the-wall strategies from time to time. Timed Out was up against an opponent who played clinically, consistently, very measuredly, and is that even a word? And RBIS, I mean, it's going to be, you'll allow it. Timed Out might have a more difficult time, but this could also just end up being one of the most confusing matches I've ever seen.
We'll find out. Go ahead and give us a follow over on Twitter at WGLNA, Facebook.com/WGLNA. Make sure to use that hashtag WGLNA so we can find your tweets and put them up on the broadcast.
And don't forget about today's question of the day, which is what tank best embodies your favorite team and why? Which I guess begs the question, what represents timed out?
What represents timed out?
Yeah.
The M41 Walker Bulldog.
I like it. I like it.
It is a tank that we've completely underestimated at the beginning of this season, and it continues to do enough damage to be a significant force in the battlefield.
I think for RBIS, this is not a tank that's played commonly in the league, but the Martyr 2. I just can't stop thinking of Martyr 2 and an old clan named Martyr She Wrote.
Oh,
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
They even had a GIF of the opening scene with the book that opens.
Really?
And it said Martyr She Wrote instead of Murder. Yeah.
Really? Well, Angela Lansbury would be very proud of that, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. It was beautifully done.
Betting is going to begin at the beginning of every single battle. Betting is very simple. All you have to do is follow the syntax in Twitch chat. Badco, our head moderator, can help you out as well. You can check out WGLConnect.com to find out where you stand when it comes to the leaderboard of points. And the top performers have an opportunity to take home a nice little prize. So make sure to place your bets, and good luck tonight. I'm sure a lot of people lost a lot of points on Simp on Tuesday. RBIS, looking back at teams that have been impressing us, I mean, currently right now in this season, but looking back at a team that thoroughly impressed us in Season 4 with their end game performance at the final, making it to the finals, taking out Simp in the playoffs to adjust the seeding, and then in the end, taking home a third-place prize.
That was an impressive run. It came out of nowhere. I didn't expect it. They were playing well the whole season, but for them to actually accomplish something like that was astounding. I think if they can have a run like that again towards the end of the season, sure, maybe that's along the lines of what they did last season, but based on the length and the number of matches this season, it's so hard to judge if they're on that same level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a completely different game.
Well, 7x54 obviously is compared to 7x42, but also the commitment from the individuals, and that's what's plagued some of these other teams. They get burned out. They feel losses after losses after losses are not going anywhere. They feel they're not getting anything out of it on this team. They want to switch to a different team, or they want to change something that's not working, and they can't put their finger on it. They don't know what is not working.
It's really hard when you just continually try and try and try,
Yeah.
and then you still see losses when you know you should have had the answer, but you still make the mistake. It comes down to a lot of practice and, of course, experience, that thing that we can't replace, time.
There will be no face-off between these two teams, so we'll get the countdown ready. Once these tanks have been selected, well, they have 60 seconds to select their tanks, and once the countdown finishes, then we'll start the battle. First battle is going to take place on Prohorovka. Penguin Mafia will be on the attack, top tier on the defense. The second map will take place on Steps, where, for that matchup.
Sorry.
For RBIS and Timed Out, we still need to hear verification from the admin for those map choices.
Yeah, it
but
looks like
Prohorovka looks like it's going to be the first map.
it does look like it, and Prohorovka is probably one of the most common maps that we're seeing right now getting played. It's decently balanced. The attacker has a reasonable chance, and I like to talk about how you can always flip around the defender's advantage. You know, it's when you're attacking, there's the two sides, east-west.
Mm-hmm.
If you make the correct choice, you can force the defender into a position where instead of being able to just defend, hold, have your crossfires and all of that, you can just make it so they have to be the attacker now. They have to come and take their own cap point back. Of course, teams are getting better at defending the cap points. We're finding that players are remembering angles through the train tracks and under the trains.
Yes.
That they really had never had to utilize because they had never come into play. No one had ever been sitting out in the very specific open place on the east side where you needed to fire under a train like that. It's such a unique situation, you know?
The unique situation turning into the 7x54 as well with the type of tanks that they're bringing. And thinking in the past of T1 Cunningham's one shot, they're dead. Not that much of an issue to deal with. But then moving on to the M41 Walker Bulldog, as we talked about before, and what they're bringing to the table.
And T-37s
T-37s,
as well. I think just American light tanks in general, and also the 5916 is one to, I think, expect from time to time on Prohorovka.
There we have our rosters from RBIS, Precambrian, leading the charge for them. Hopefully he'll be here tonight to command. We have Gandorfo, Matt Knight, and Raul, who we usually see in the face-offs from Timed Out. Good luck to both these teams as we jump onto the battlefield. Match number 1. between RBIS and Timed Out. What do we have for tanks?
Looks like a 2 T-32, 2 1390, single RU-251 lineup for RBIS. They're going to have, of course, 2 M41 Walker Bulldogs. We'll be able to figure out if they're autoloaders or not in a moment. Then it looks like Timed Out's going to go with a single T-32 with a majority light lineup, and they're going to bring 3 RU-251s. So more mobile, a little more single fire, consistent fire. And looking at pre-cam, it looks like he's going to load. He's going to bring an autoloader, so will Gabriel. On the other side, Cess and Gandorfo also. All autoloader M41 Walker Bulldogs. No single shots here.
One of the tweets coming from Electronic saying that gaming Timed Out is the embodiment of the RU-251.
Well, they might just be. Opening move is on Enrique Dante. Goes right up and over, shots into Carbon Ward and into Precam. Precam is forced into the east side. While we do have an east side flanking force, this strat from RBIS is very similar to what we saw from Simp just the other day. And the opening did not work out very well for them. We can see that Carbon Ward and Sella are taking a mountain of fire, but they are not going down nearly as quickly today.
No, they're not. RBIS is landing their shots for the return fire, causing damage spread out among Timed Out. And the firing continues. Pre-Cambrian takes a hit, and he's going to fall back further behind cover away from the train tracks. Sella to the front takes another hit for 233. That one coming from Matt Knight. Enrique Dante pushes up for another shot. Matt Knight hit again, 2 more shots, and he'll go down. He has to fall back. Raul hit again for 242. And the dance continues on the high ground of Prohorovka as Sella is hit to the front.
And look to the south. While these T-32s are taking damage, there is support from the north, but Precam in the south may be able to begin supporting. I'm seeing shots fired now into the back of tanks in the middle. All of these RU-251s are completely exposed. And while they can try to return fire, they do not have a good bead on Precam. Finally, he is taking fire. One more shell, he will go down. There he goes.
And there goes Carbon Ward. BR game over had that confirmed kill. Enrique Dante still barely left alive as Gandorfo now takes a number of hits. 2 of them and 3, he falls.
Now, Mi Amigo has 3 shells left. Smiley, of course, consistent fire is going to fire all he likes. Ox Mathis, elsewhere on the map, is sniping at Cess and Matt Knight. This is a very spread out position from RBIS. They are at a disadvantage in tank numbers, but they can try to bring this back with their hit points. They have a larger pool of hit points, and if they're able to focus fire, it takes only a few shells to take down any of the tanks on Timed Out.
Mi Amigo at about half health, falling away from that north side. Nip was able to put some pressure to the north at least to stop them from coming up and over to gauge where the rest of Timed Out is. And now we have Nip on the flag cap.
From here, looking at Timed Out's positioning, if they're able to cover every angle and every approach with at least 2 guns, they should be able to make some strong trades. But if RBIS is able to overpower one side or the other, and Timed Out does not respond appropriately by shifting fire and then focusing well, you're going to see RBIS be able to just knock down every single Timed Out tank one by one like dominoes.
Cess will take the northern position in the 41 Bulldog. Sees no tank, spots nothing, looks down to the south. Gabriel Angelos has been seen. Hit for 226. Cess now going to land some. Well, he's fired down towards the south. He's able to land 1 shot against Smiley. And Matt Knight's in trouble.
Yeah, he goes down, not looking quite at Ox Mathis. You're looking at how Ox Mathis has plenty of hit points. He can play with that. How he's weaving in and out so that he's exposed for a moment, only long enough to fire, backing off to get his reload, and then reapproaching and re-engaging when the opponent is distracted. He's taking minimal amounts of damage, minimal exposure, and you're seeing how RBIS has now brought this one from being undergunned to being a 2v4.
And with 2 tanks remaining for the attackers, with 3 minutes and 15 seconds, it's going to be a little bit easier for RBIS as the defenders to hold out. They have more guns and they have all the time they need.
Yeah. It was looking strong for a moment from Timed Out, but that was it. They were not able to cover all of the angles of approach or predict their opponent's movement. And because they could not do that, you're looking at that being flipped around. Same strategy against Simp. You're seeing the appropriate responses here.
And the 2 tankers left from Timed Out will group up. Moving further south. Cess moving to the front. Either to move quicker for the RU-251 or being kind of a bit of a lightweight bodyguard.
I think because he has so much burst, and also it being a slightly more expendable tank, being a lower tier, maybe that's their decision. Or it could simply be a product of the way they're working together, Cess deciding to lead the way.
I think they'd rather have the 41 Bulldog take 1 or 2 shots of damage, probably 1 at most, compared to the RU-251, to allow the RU to be more of a force to be reckoned with the 2 minutes and 10 seconds that are left on the battle.
Now, Timed Out is in a very difficult situation if we try and approach this from their perspective. RBIS has to make sure that they corral their opponent in. They have to keep Cess and Nip contained, but now that they're approaching the south, that is the only angle which is not completely cut off or covered, and Smiley is not making those connections. 2 missed shots at long range on those tanks. Third one also straight into the dirt, and a few other missed shots returning, but no real damage done yet. Both teams a little bit far away, and I think a little bit gun shy.
Cess not able to land a shot in quite a number of shells here.
Wow, that one was so close to Smiley. It went just under his strike. There's a connection. 410 damage into Smiley.
Double tap. If Cess can clean up the rest of these tanks that are very low, but he takes a big hit from Ox Mathis, who has 2 shells left in his tank. He takes another one to the front. Smiley was ready for it. Nip 100 has got to return fire to take down that tank, or Cess could fall. Minute and 5 seconds.
Mi Amigo, moving off to the east, is about to find himself Cess, and possibly Nip may have just slipped by. No, he didn't. He is spotted. And Cess is still an unknown. Fire for 250 into Mi Amigo, but a trade for 233 back into Nip. It's about even, but RBIS can afford more hit points than Timed Out can.
Well, Mi Amigo gets hit by Cess. Cess needs 2 more shots to take him down, but Mi Amigo closes the deal against the assaulting tank. Nip 100 has 1 shot left, and he dodges 1. Can he fire back? He's changing course, changing targets, changing position, and now he's changing his status from alive to dead. And that's it. Defenders take it.
Is that like a Facebook update?
Yeah.
Feeling dead?
Real quick, real fast Facebook updates coming out of his tank.
Gotta let you know, dead.
But that was the one thing that I was noticing from Timed Out, is that they couldn't pick a target to focus on with those last 2 tanks that were alive. Yes, we know how difficult it can be when you're outgunned, but they kind of just led themselves into a trap too, being inside that village.
I think it was RBIS handling them very well. They recognized the positions RBIS held where they couldn't go because they could not afford a straight-up engagement. They didn't have some advantage there. They didn't have the burst to be able to get a lead in any kind of a brawl. They didn't have the health to play with. They didn't have armor to rely on any bounces whatsoever. So the thought of trying to directly engage, even though you could try and catch your opponent off guard or something, maybe they wouldn't expect you to come right at them. This is a situation where even if you did that, I think you just walk straight into their reticles and they'd be able to take you out more easily. The chances of them coming back, while they could deal the damage and they could make it happen, it depends on, I think, RBIS making the mistakes, where we saw some of that at the beginning of when they went all the way to the south and tried to cross there. Some missed shells, maybe saying...
A lot of missed shells.
Yeah, you're right.
A lot of missed shells.
A few more misses and some strong returns by Timed Out, if they had made those connections at about 400 meters, we would have seen them possibly coming back in that situation because they would have been able to deal enough damage and would have been able to take those guns out.
And that's one of the biggest flip sides of this type of scenario, this type of battle, is that when you consistently miss shots in very small windows, they start to add up. And even though it could be 2 or 3 seconds here and 2 or 3 seconds about 3 minutes later, that's still a window of 6 seconds where you've missed consistently, and that's not good. You can't do that. Moving into battle number 2 between Timed Out and RBIS. Still on Prohorovka. RBIS still on the defense. What do we have for tanks?
All right, so RBIS, 2 T-32s, 2 3090s, RU-215, 251, excuse me, and 2 M41 Walker Bulldogs. Other side, same thing from Timed Out. So no real changes here. That single T-32, that single 1390, and the RUs, telling us that they might be going for that same opening, where they blitz the middle, come up and over, get their opening fire out, and then retreat. This time, Timed Out might take a lesson from last battle and back off a little sooner, take their small lead, and then try to work with that. They had a hit point lead in the opening move. Now with Gabriel Angelos moving on the same scout run as last time, and the same moves from the rest of RBIS, not as many connections. Gabriel does not take a shell this time, and he's going to begin immediately going into the backfield.
I love the concentrated fire coming from Timed Out, but not a lot of landed shots, and Nip trades fire and takes a hit for 222 damage. Gandorfo and Cess will pull back. Enrique is hit again on the side of Timed Out. Matt Knight will be on the furthest western side. Enrique hit again.
Yeah, and
again.
And you can see RBIS is reacting very well to this. They're countering it, they're putting guns on the position, and they're sending tanks to the right positions. But they're spreading out quite a bit. If Timed Out recognizes that there's a weakness in that, they could jump on it. But their current positioning is such that I don't think they have as much opportunity. They're going to have to go west.
Yeah, to try to figure out where RBIS is going to take some significant scouting further to the north. And if they even hint that one of those tanks are moving there, they could see an overmatch in the center. Timed Out will continue to be on the high ground with a number of their RU-251s. And from the south, Precambrian will be taking some fire. Nip hit to the front.
And I like the position from Matt Knight. High ground all the way in Echo 1. This is not usually a smart position from him, where he can snipe the T-32s. But from here, there's no one actually in the north to spot him, so it's simply a raised position that has good bush cover. But otherwise, if he were firing from here and anyone were on the west, he would be immediately spotted. It's just that open. But it's working to his advantage in getting those shots on those T-32s.
Firing back's game over towards RBIS. Nothing lands again for Timed Out. Another shot from game over. Another miss. Taking a look at the rest of the tanks down to the south. Cess just got hit for 274. Maintaining a presence in the south to hold on to map control, at least for 50% of it, as RBIS holds in the northeast, waiting for the attackers to come to them.
I think I see an option for Timed Out. Do you see where Cess and Gandorfo are?
Yes.
Way down in the south. Now, they're leaving, but I would have thought maybe you could send them to the hill, all the way to Gulf Zero, and start spotting from the west, but then wait for the right moment, and whilst making a push from the west, pressure those tanks from the east. Just hit them from the east at the right moment, and then begin that push. And that could open up the window and pull RBIS's attention in too many directions for them to make the right call. Kind of trying to trip them up, you know?
Yeah, pull their attention into different directions. Yeah. But Matt Knight, and it looks like the rest of the northern section of tanks are going to move towards the flag cap, or just past the flag cap. Do not reveal their location yet. They fire towards Smiley, can't connect. Enrique, Dante, and Raul from Timed Out will bring up the rear as Matt Knight will lead NIP 100. And the rest of his teammates are now on the flag cap here, looking for the response from RBIS.
So a fast cap. With this, the obvious response from RBIS is going to be a flank around to the south or along the F line. You're going to come up and over the hill, meet your opponent, fire down into him, and there's every advantage there. If Timed Out wants to respond to this appropriately, they need to watch that exact approach. Game Over is on the way there, but Cess and Gandorfo, they need to be firing at this approach. You see Oxmathis approaching right now the same way he did last battle.
2 more seconds left on the flag cap. They need to reset right now. They're taking too long. They finally get it. Enrique Dante is hit, and there goes Raul in a huge explosion. Ammo rack. The 251s are still in trouble as they stay onto the flag, dancing back and forth, using the dead husk of their teammate to stay alive. Gandorfo returns fire, hits Gabriel Angelos for the kill. And the remaining tanks from Timed Out could set up a counterflank here against RBIS.
We could see that, but the advantage, it's all over. RBIS has control of this battle. They have the momentum, and now, even though they are kind of down on hit points, I'm not seeing those connections that Timed Out needs to make. Game Over is getting focused down by Oxmathis, and Mi Amigo may be low, but I think he's staying alive. Sela sitting low. We need those connections, but if one player just comes on through, we could actually watch him go down like dominoes yet again. Nip finally taking fire, but you can see everyone on Timed Out is almost down. Everyone on both sides almost down.
Nip misses a shot against Smiley. Cess from a distance could line up another one. He gets it, keeps his teammate alive, and 3 tanks versus 3 tanks is what's left with 1 minute and 40 seconds on the battle clock.
Game Over, about to reload. He looks away from Oxmathis, now looking towards Sela and Carbon Ward. Sela incredibly low and exposed, by the way. Should be an easy shot for Game Over. But Sela is firing down at Nip and Cess. That high ground advantage should work well for him, but Oxmathis, when will he be reloaded? He is reloaded.
Carbon Ward took a hit a little bit earlier on. BR game over, takes another shot. Ox Mathis able to dodge the hit from Nip 100, takes down BR game over. Cess now crossing the road, heading towards the east side, looking to take down Ox Mathis. 1 minute and 5 seconds left. This is a hunt for Timed Out to take down 3 tanks that are so low on health, but they're low as well. Timed Out playing from a disadvantage again towards the end of the firefight.
All right, Nip, if he makes any connection to Carbon Ward or Sella, he should get the kill. If it's HE, he might not kill Carbon Ward. He should be able to kill Sella with anything. And he's found Sella. Waits for it. And there's the connection. Gets the kill, but Carbon Ward has a bead. And he gets it.
But Cess from behind can see Carbon Ward. He needs 2 good shots against this tank and to be able to dodge the fire coming from teammate.
One could do it. But I think Carbon Ward is predicting the angle.
He's going to turn. He's going to turn right towards him and gets the shot. Nice snapshot coming from Carbon Ward and great usage of turning the most amount of armor you have on your tank towards the danger.
Exactly. Strong prediction. He recognized they're going to come from both sides. Right out of Jurassic Park.
Clever. Well, again, to the brink is what Timed Out is able to do against RBIS as the attackers. Now we're going to switch sides. Timed Out will be on the defense. RBIS will be on the attack. If RBIS can continue this momentum on the attacking side, strongest prediction is they'll take this series. But Timed Out has been full of surprises and obliterated all our predictions on Tuesday.
But their same attacks, they attempted the same strategies here today, which worked for them to some degree because they're so aggressive and they require you just to get into a fight immediately. You don't have a chance to play around with getting early damage because that is Timed Out setting the tempo. This is going to be a fight. This entire battle is going to be an engagement. We're not going to have a moment where there isn't fire being traded. There isn't damage being done. There might be missed shells, but all the time, your team is going to be worried about trying to respond to our motions, trying to come up with a response, some kind of flank, some kind of answer. But they're not getting a moment to really collect themselves until it's the end of the battle.
Well, now how do they collect themselves on the defense? Do they take a sigh of relief and go, okay, would they have to come to us? Because that, to me, is the worst decision to make because that's when a team can blitz and go right for the flag cap or right towards your spawn point, catch you completely by surprise, knock out 1 or 2 tanks, have an HP value lead, and they could fall back. They don't have to completely push in, but you disagree because forward is the best direction, especially when you have the advantage.
Exactly, but RBIS is the kind of team that's not going to be made as uncomfortable as Simple as the other day, so they're handling many of these surprise plays by Timed Out much better.
All right, battle number 3 between RBIS and Timed Out is about to begin. What type of tanks did they bring this time, Randall?
Oh, we've got a T-32. 2 1390s, 2 RU-251s, and 2 M41 Walker Bulldogs for RBIS. The red team now attacking. And on the defense, Timed Out is actually going to bring the same strat they brought on attack. And very well could bring the exact same opening move, the exact same blitz, everything. As I am watching the minimap and I see, yep, that's RU-251s headed to the middle.
And they're moving quick. Matt Knight leading the charge. The RU-251s are actually faster than the 1390 at top speed.
One of the fastest tanks in the game right now. And they are heavier. First shell goes into pre-camp for 233, but the follow-up, Smiley and Sella coming to the top. Sella going way out and getting aggressive, able to deal a little damage into Raul without taking any himself. And that should allow for Carbon Ward to get to the middle and then use his T-32 as intended and hold down and obliterating other light tanks.
That's a big hit against Enrique Dante for 442. That's going to take a lot of the wind out of his sails, you could say, for this center engagement coming from him and the rest of his teammates and Timed Out. More missed shots coming from Timed Out here.
And Timed Out's going to begin to spread out as they go east, west, north, south, everywhere to begin covering. And this is not a situation they've had to go to for a while, where they actually didn't have a strong engagement at the beginning. It was not successful. They're down on hit points, but only by a little bit, about 500.
Raul hit, along with Enrique, they fall back. The control of RBIS has been significant so far, but the attackers got to do more than control. They have to break through their enemy.
And Carbon Ward may start taking fire soon.
Yep.
Yes, there it is. From Matt Knight on the side, and then Nip 100 is on his way. Raul moving up to the middle in order to put that crossfire, but at the same time, RBIS is making their run down the 2 line to take control of the west side of the map. From that high ground, they'll be able to dominate game over Raul Gandorfo in their positions unless they take cover soon. But if they take Carbon Ward, if Timed Out takes down Carbon Ward, which they do, nice shot, Matt Knight setting him on fire, will give them a one-gun advantage and prompts RBIS to make their push.
Precam takes another hit for 290, pushing across the flag cap. RBIS has been too exposed moving over the open section of Prohorovka, and now Gandorfo sees the remainder of RBIS in the center. Noticing 4 tanks with a scouting run, he'll fall very quickly. Smiley trying to at least disengage a bit from the north side by going around the rock. And the red team, RBIS, will push into the north.
Yes, but they are taking a lot of fire for this. Gabriel is almost down. One more shell will finish him off, and that's Enrique Dante from down south. No, that's up north. God, he was there. Now Mi Amigo taking fire as well.
RBIS still looking for a good opening here. BR game over. Could be on the surround, but Matt Knight and the rest of Timed Out are now pushing into the northern section. They recognize they have the overmatch, and they go for it. Smiley still holds his ground for a brief second, taking down Matt Knight, but he falls. Timed Out now has a bit of an advantage here.
Now, Ox Mathis is left alive. Curiously, this happens a lot for RBIS. He is often the 1390 left alive when no one else is to try and clutch the battle. And he might be able to put up a decent fight, but against these odds, it's rather thin.
Sella falling back away from game over as Ox Mathis leaves his teammate to engage, takes down Raul, and continues to fight against Nip. He doesn't know that Cess is coming in. Now he'll know that Cess is coming in due to that 50 meters. And Nip 100 holds the line with barely any health, 27 hit points for the defending victory for Timed Out in battle number 3.
And it's all about their opening strategy. If it succeeds, they do so much better, but you can see how RBIS is shutting that down. They recognize where Timed Out's trying to get that momentum and then continue with it early on, but I got to give it to Timed Out in this one that they recognized the weak point, take down the T-32, and I think they got a little bit lucky maybe with the timing, which was they were able to get him right when RBIS was making their move to the north. So because they happened at the same time, you had a T-32 exposed for that tiny window. They were able to follow this up, of course, and then recognize where they had the overmatches, and they didn't hesitate, which is what I like about Timed Out's play. They may make some mistakes here or there tactically, but when they do make a decision, I'm not seeing a lot of hesitation.
That's a good thing, but no hesitation on almost a guaranteed victory with these overmatches.
Yes, but
I'm finding RBIS to split up. This attack run that they had at first was, okay, we could see Timed Out bringing in the same thing, but the engagements, every engagement they started to have past the 5-minute mark were engagements at a preset disadvantage with the number of tanks firing in one location compared to the return fire in a separate flank. They had no counterflank set up.
They keep trying to. Like you saw in the first attacks, they recognized the answer to the west cap being pushed, and once your opponent's on the west side cap and you have that timer on, you approach from the south across the F line. Once you do that, you have cover from all of the tanks on the north in the cap, all of the tanks covering that cap point, and then you can grab the high ground, also a hold down position. So they obviously know how to defend themselves, but on the attack, it looks like their inability to get comfortable and read their enemy is causing them to make some mistakes.
Well, hopefully they can clean up some of those mistakes as we move into battle number 4, the last battle here on Prohorovka for RBIS and Timed Out. What do we have for tanks, Randall?
Well, 2 T-32s, 2 1390s, 2 RU-251s, and a 5916 played by Precam. So I'm thinking RBIS is going for a fast cap, or this could be some kind of mix for a fight. On the other side, Timed Out, that same lineup as they always have, that single T-32, that hit squad of RU-251s, Matt Knight in the 1390, Gandorfo and Cess in the Bulldogs.
Bit of a split again happening, but this time for Timed Out, they're heading very, very far east with 3 of their tanks to the north. We have Gandorfo, followed by 2 teammates in the north, Nip 100 and Enrique Dante. I thought they were going to go with Gandorfo, but they've stayed behind, and Raul will be with them as well.
Nah, it's just a firing squad waiting for that up and over for RBIS to maybe imitate them. But as you can see now, RBIS is going with a very southwest strat, which is more conservative and is trying to accomplish something of a west side control, but working around the strategy that Timed Out brings, where they bring a faster lineup and attempt to dominate in that way. If RBIS can get these T-32s, both of them, into the proper position, they should be able to dominate the west and begin bullying Timed Out.
Give you an update on the other match that's not being broadcasted. Top Tier is up 2-0 over Penguin Mafia. We'll keep you updated as that match continues to develop. And in this development, not a lot of engagement coming from RBIS. The time is ticking against them again as they're the attackers.
That is probably the real con of their opening. They're not able to get very close and start an engagement or grab as much ground as they would like in the first few minutes, whereas a more aggressive strategy would allow you that. But they are minimizing the risk of their opening by heading very southwest, right down the K-line, then up the 1-2 and the 3. Now, Sela is going to potentially lose some health as he goes up and over into the bowl, but there are no connections.
Nip 100 in his position, fires 2 shots, none connect. There's a third, though. Carbon War gets hit.
Now he's taking fire. That's what we were waiting for. I believe that's from Nip in the south, and that's a bounce. That's what Heat does.
That's what Heat does.
Fizzles. Sounds like bacon.
Bacon, to me, when it gets cooked, sounds like a round of applause.
Like clapping, little tiny hands.
Yay, bacon!
Yay!
That's a joke from Jim Gaffigan, one of my favorite comedians. Nip 100 in the south, continues to fire. Nothing is being scattered right now. A little bit of blind fire coming from the RU-251. Gandorfo's good ahead to the south as well, joining his compatriot. And it's a east versus west standoff.
It's not a standoff anymore. It looks like RBIS has made a decision. They're going to start heading east with all of their 1390, well, their 2 1390s, 2 RU-251s. And the way they're moving could begin exposing themselves right up around the 4-5 line. But they're stopping, and I'm wondering what RBIS's goal is here. Because I think they were just sending out a group to try and catch something.
Yeah.
Shifting around, looking for a mistake. But they don't have any strong indication that there was anything there.
I think they're trying to move as a group to not have the scenario happen, as I mentioned in the last battle, to be picked apart in different sections.
Yes, but when you move around like that, when I can tell RBIS doesn't have the best intel on the current locations of Timed Out, that runs the risk of taking fire. And you do have to have a risk, but I would have thought maybe there would be that forward scout with support fire, but it was just a herd of light tanks moving forward.
Now, for some of our new viewers that are checking out WGLNA for the first time, the 7x54 format has an attacking team and a defending team. The attacking team has 7 minutes to either destroy all the enemy tanks or capture one of the 2 flag caps on the map. The defending team has to simply survive or destroy all the attacking tanks. So that's why RBIS needs to make a move here pretty quickly as we approach the 3-minute mark.
All right, here's the up and over. Precam is going to move onto the cap, and that's going to force Timed Out to find an answer. Now, if Timed Out's been paying attention, has studied the right strategies, they know the F line is the right approach, will allow them that kind of cover. But part of the strategy that RBIS has employed will allow them to defend well. They have 2 T-32s in the bowl at Echo 3, which can shift slightly south and then begin punishing any tanks that move in like that. You're seeing Nip, Matt Knight, Raul moving up and over, and Gandorfo is already on his way across the far south, may be able to get there in time to stop the cap. And shots fired from Gandorfo into Carbon Ward.
1 shot from Carbon Ward, game over, unfortunately, with a miss over Sela, but that suppressing fire can start to cause a division between RBIS. Another shot for 175, and Smiley gets hit. But a division between the attacking team and the defending team.
And I'm seeing a little spotting. Raul is spotted by Ox Mathis. He's going to start moving backwards. That's going to indicate to Sela and Carbon Ward they need to shift their position, their focus to these light tanks. Now, hesitation and a lack of focus fire will stop Timed Out from being able to succeed here. If they can make all these shots, they might have the momentum through this to stop the cap and then get the win. Now you can see in the north, they've gotten off the cap. Precam is moving north. There goes Cess and Nip.
Ox Mathis with the up and over pushes in against Raul. Matt Knight and Raul focusing down Carbon Ward, but he has plenty of HP to absorb those shots and continue to be a force to be reckoned with. Matt Knight on the reload has to back up. Gandorfo pushes in to help Matt Knight retreat, and his sacrifice allows Matt Knight to fight another day. The cost, though, is eyes and ears and damage coming from Gandorfo, and BR game over is very low on health.
Yes, he has to take on Gabriel, Precam, and Mi Amigo. Precam just finished reloading. This is not a good situation for him. Gabriel should be able to take him down alone, but with backup like this, it's not looking good.
Matt Knight, as he runs, he falls, and he goes down, and that's it. RBIS cleans up the battlefield and takes battle number 4, currently with a 3-1 lead against Timed Out. We're going to move on to Himmelsdorf.
In that last battle, it was a lot of correct moves, and then RBIS recognizing that they had baited their opponent into those. So as Timed Out learns the more conventional and most usually efficient responses, you're seeing RBIS coming out with the counters to that and being prepared for those exact answers, knowing their opponent and knowing that they have answers to if they make the less intelligent decision of just attacking from the north, but also the usually better one and going in from the south.
I was slightly concerned with the division coming from RBIS of the majority of tanks to the north and the amount that they had to the south, but they were able to flex themselves, almost like water, which I love to bring up in previous seasons, but to move like water, quoting Bruce Lee, to allow their opponents to kind of move in and then to crush them. It was a bit of a bait for them to come towards the eastern side, or the western side, excuse me. Right when they get past that defilade, they knew when to pounce.
Exactly. You had Ox Mathis showing up at the exact right time. He realized, I need to be here, or someone on the team realized it. We need a scout exactly in this position to watch that approach at the right time. Because he was there, saw Raul, and he knew the push was coming.
Yeah.
He didn't actually have the spotting, I think, of all of the tanks pushing in, but that was enough of an indication to know that the force was on its way, and also to be able to predict, I believe, the expected size, and then be able to respond appropriately. 2 T-32s, volley firing together, are going to deal enough damage to be able to blunt that attack. Throw Ox Mathis in there, and you should be able to win.
RBIS is called the Timed Out. Every team has one timeout they can call per match, and RBIS, I'm sure, is feeling very confident moving into Himmelsdorf. Timed Out, going through their minds, we can only guess, but probably understanding that the defensive structure of Prohorovka really lends to that time management. The attackers, time's working against you. For the defenders, time can be working for you in most scenarios. But did timeout move a little bit too far from the safety of the defensive position to chase after what they thought would be a sure victory in the south against RBIS?
No, I think they made the move that they believed was right. And it wasn't that they executed it poorly, it's that it simply was countered. You had better play by RBIS in these battles coming forward, and you're seeing kind of like a chess game in a way.
Yeah.
You know that they're gonna open up with that mid blitz. They're gonna try and take control of the center of the map, and then exert power from there. Because you saw it the other day, and you know that's their favorite strategy, or it's their go-to strategy. It's been working very well. They're going to do it again. Why try and switch that up?
Why change it if it's working?
But, of course, the reason you change it is...
it becomes predictable.
And then it gets countered. So RBIS studied last night. They came today prepared for Timed Out.
And that preparation is showing, but it's not over yet. As we move on to Himmelsdorf here in a matter of seconds, the timeout is over. Now teams are selecting their tanks. The difference, though, with Himmelsdorf compared to Prohorovka, again, for some of the people that have never watched the WGLA before, city maps are going to bring different tanks and different strategies compared to more open maps. Prohorovka is an open map. Himmelsdorf is city map, and we're going to see a lot of defensive play coming from the northwest corner from both of these teams if they're playing it standard. What do we have for tanks, Randall?
For tanks, RBIS is going to bring a 3 5100, 2 IS-3, 2 T-29 strategy. And on the side of Timed Out Gaming, they're going to bring a very healthy lineup. 2 5100s, a single IS-3, 2 KV-5s, and 2 ISs. Now, the ISs will bring Alpha as the Tier 7s for Timed Out, whereas RBIS seems to believe in the hull down, higher DPM option for their defense. Of course, I agree with that. T-29, strong and hull down, better than the IS in that choice, but the IS is better for the attack, where you're going to find a tank and you're just going to nuke it.
Gandorfo, along with the rest of his team, are heading in a south approach towards the west, and Enrique Dante will be leading that charge. You'll see those ISs, KV-5s.
Oh, yeah.
Coming at a game over in that night here.
Bringing the healthiest lineup they can. They want to try and meet an engagement and trade evenly. If they can trade evenly, or even just slightly above that, a little bit more efficiently than their opponent, then they will come out ahead because they have more health points. They can afford to lose those. And because they also have the armor of a KV-5, there's a chance that those 5100s will not be able to finish them off. It's very difficult to against a skilled opponent,
Yes.
make all of your shells count in a 5100 against that KV-5.
We love seeing KV-5s leading the charge and for tankers to try to shut them. Wait for the tanks behind them. That waiting allows these KV-5s to return fire, and we've seen tankers use the KV-5 with such exceptional skill that they will lead their team in damage because they can stay alive for just that much longer.
I'm wondering if Timed Out really did their homework. RBIS's opening was to counter the 8-line push, something that's very common when attacking, and they're moving right through. Matt Knight is about to catch Carbon Ward or Akiyama in the open. They turn to face him and recognize that he's alone, but I don't think they realize what's directly to his south. There is support fire waiting to come and help him out.
Well, Matt Knight, if he can try to push them out towards the center, the rest of his team can unload a number of shells down that alley, but Matt Knight still barely left alive with the rest of his team shifting their armor to create the best angles possible.
Oh my gosh, Sela goes down 1,078. He is able to take down Matt Knight, but that volley was brutal. And if you look at the hit points, Timed Out has 8,540. In that engagement, in that trade, they came out way ahead, and they are above their opponent by over 1,000 hit points. And there are a number of tanks on RBIS that are ready to go down in 1 or 2 shells.
Raul from around the corner, ready to set this up. As RBIS with their weaker tanks are heading into a firefight. Game over, and Enrique Dante are ready for him. Pre-Cambrian bounces a shot off Raul. Enrique hit for 408. Gabriel Angelos from behind will be engaged by Nip 100 to shut down that flank. But is it too late? Gabriel still able to do significant damage to the back of Timed Out. And Nip 100 turns the corner and gets the kill. The action continues in the northwest corner here. Pre-Cambrian gets hit for 2, 350, 341 in that last shot. Sela goes down. Ox Mathis returns fire, and Mi Amigo from further away continues to unload against Uvud and Raul. It's a back and forth matchup in this corner.
And Precam is trying to take on Raul. He's very low health. Carbon Ward is almost down, but Gandorfo reloads. And he goes for Precam instead, taking the easier kill and removing that from the battlefield. But Gandorfo, wow, he went down fast.
He went down very quickly, Carbon Ward. And Mi Amigo still alive. Mi Amigo at about 60% reloaded here. Takes over 50 seconds for an AMX 5100 to load all of its 6 shots, an autoloader tank.
Of course, it varies based on their hit points, based on crew skills, and based on the equipment that you bring.
Carbon Ward is not going to survive this. Nip 100 is loaded. Enrique Dante actually gets that kill. It's all up to Mi Amigo, who is fully loaded now.
He does not have enough damage there to deal 2,650 hit points, though. If, with 3 minutes left, yes, he's the defender. I guess it's a game for survival.
It's a game for survival. It's a game for getting resets on these flag caps if he does not stay to engage. He is on the move. He's on the run. He's getting behind cover as quickly as he can. As Timed Out moves to the north side, they have 2 minutes and 52 seconds to either capture the flag or get this kill.
So what is he going to be able to do? Now, I believe it's possible for him to do this if he can do a few drive-bys, but Timed Out has to get set up first. If Enrique Dante caught in the open, shot fired and it missed. All right, I think I'll give it to Timed Out now. So if he made all his connections right off the bat, fine. But now, here goes Mi Amigo.
Too much damage and too much firepower to go up against. Mi Amigo melts to the guns of Timed Out. They put another point on the board, and they continue to fight in this matchup against RBIS as we'll move on to battle number 6.
I think that RBIS, while they attempted a counter strategy, it ended up working against them. And the part I'm not sure about is, did Timed Out create a counter to that strategy with their opening to avoid being spotted, approach at the right angle, and then catch the 5100s? Or was this a happenstance where RBIS's attempt at an aggressive opening worked against them and they walked into their opponents who had set up a moment ago, and then, surprise, surprise, some free 5100 damage?
I thought it was also a fundamental flaw in how they moved their tanks. They were still focused towards the hill on the eastern side where no real tankers had been spotted, and they continued to look in that direction as they moved across the most vulnerable section in the entire map. In that flag cap, they still were pointed down that alley.
You're right.
So by the time the first tank had moved past cover, he was just turning his turret, and they're not expecting a KV-5 to be there, obviously, but you have to be ready for anything that can happen in this most vulnerable alley.
Yeah, when you're traveling in a group, this is something that you probably would imitate tanks in the military. You keep gun front. There's someone who's looking right, someone's looking left,
Yes.
someone's looking to the rear. That could have been a tactic they employed there. I think they were just not giving it that much thought. I think that was it. They assumed, oh, they're not coming down the 8 lane. They're not doing what we expect. What they're probably doing is they're coming up and over the hill, the spot we weren't looking for.
That's that type of mentality we had spoken about of pigeonholing yourself as we're defending Northwest Corner. We got this every single time. You don't got this every single time. You've got to adapt and be flexible for every single engagement, or teams like Timed Out, like anybody, will adapt themselves to what you brought in the last battle.
Yeah, I think the little thing that RBIS could have done is they could have put a tank, an IS-3, to watch that approach down the middle, and it would have changed the whole battle.
Yep.
They would have seen it coming, and they would have been able to have a flank that Timed Out wouldn't have expected.
It's not over yet. RBIS still leads right now, 3-2. Timed Out on the attack once again here on Himmelsdorf in battle number 6. What do we have for tanks?
Looks like we've got 3 AMX 5100s, 2 IS-3s, 2 T-29s for RBIS. No surprise there. And then the same lineup again from Timed Out Gaming, who have 2 5100s, single IS-3, 2 KV-5s, and 2 ISs. So it's a beefy lineup, well over 10K.
Initial movement coming from Timed Out, the blue team on the screen. Spawning to the bottom section of the hillside. Hillside is quite a climb for a lot of these slower tanks. We'll see Matt Knight and BR game over heading towards the Tank Alley section, while the rest of their team will head west.
And as you can see, the opening move from RBIS is much more conservative this time. You got Mi Amigo, Gabriel Angelos in the west side, firing down the train tracks just in case there's something from Timed Out there, and able to take down some of the destructive cover which would interfere with their ability to engage on Timed Out's approach.
Shot into the distance, does not connect anywhere significant. Coming from RBIS to the north. Raul's going to cross the courtyard in the center, slowly. This is a lot of information gathering to see if RBIS has moved away from that northwest corner. And they're starting to find out that RBIS has not done so, so they'll set up another attack run to push through the blockade, you could say, of tanks in that section. Gathering towards the delta line of the courtyard. Matt Knight heading to the same position we saw that KV-5 from the last battle. As game over and Raul will stay on the delta line. Gandolfo hanging back, Enrique Dante and Nip 100 along the golf line.
So now it's all about what will Timed Out do if they make any mistakes. Matt Knight beginning to reverse angle in the north as he's going to try and take on Pre-Cam. Between the two of them, usually there's not a lot of damage traded. Pre-Cam has an easy angle onto Matt Knight, can fire into him, maybe make a connection, but very likely he's going to bounce. And if he loads HE or something, it's not really going to do much damage. So we're looking at kind of a standoff, which might work as a distraction, especially if we see the wrong posturing from RBIS. Right now they've got Mi Amigo appropriately positioned, looking at a very thin angle right towards the corner of Delta 3. He's prepared for that. He's going to spot them as they come around, and then he can fire, move forward from there, and then find appropriate cover. This is exactly how you want to handle that situation to maximize damage, pull the guns and attention of your opponent, and then back out and allow a different lane of fire to come in. And this is going to be the push from Timed Out. We've seen shots fired. Matt Knight has taken damage in the east, but Mi Amigo was not able to deal damage. Pre-fire from Timed Out, I think, as they looked around that same corner, predicted Mi Amigo's position, and then fired before they had confirmation he was there. So this is a lot of back and forth head game going on here. And I'm surprised. Timed Out, of course, being a team that only very recently showed us that they have the potential to perform at that high a level, are doing that just right now.
There's a connection coming from Sella into Raul for 415. Traded fire against Ox Mathis, and the push continues from Timed Out to press against RBIS for another victory here to tie up the series. There's another connection on game over. That one does connect. Sess is hit. Gandolfo continues to push. And now the momentum for Timed Out around the corner will continue against RBIS, but they shut down Gandolfo. Selleck is going to be the next target. And Enrique Dante in the 5100 gets focused down, but he falls back against this great lineup of tanks from Timed Out to stay alive, but they are losing significant hit points here.
And the problem is that they are playing that corner game where they're in a crossfire. They need to get in there and start the focus. Their Carbon Akiyama are down. That is guns out of the fight. They still have people alive, but RBIS has the damage and they have the hit points to begin trading and taking down some of these tanks, removing them from the battlefield while Timed Out is attempting to focus them down.
One shot left on BR Game Over to fall, and those shots are coming from behind. Cess now up against Ox Mathis, IS-3. He'll be reloaded first. Gabriel Angelos takes down Matt Knight. Ox Mathis lines up the shot, gets the kill against Cess. And Nip 100 from Timed Out on the run as the 5100 still on the reload with about 60% health left.
Yeah, that's a pretty impossible situation. You're looking at Gabriel's too healthy, mi amigo. Timed Out made the mistake I wouldn't expect them to and played it slower than I would have expected. Most teams, when they succeed in that Northwest, push and do not hesitate, do not stop at the corner, which is where things start to kind of become equal and everyone starts to trade evenly, where Timed Out could have continued that blitz and focused down the right tanks, gotten better shots, more consistent damage, then come out ahead. But now, RBIS, perfect defense.
And they continue to lead 4-2. So we'll move on to battle number 7. The sides will flip, though. RBIS will be on the attack, and they're going to have to break through Timed Out. If Timed Out can hold them for 2 battles, and that's going to take us to a tiebreaker. I
don't know if I expect Timed Out to perform nearly as well on defense. I much prefer their attacks. But this one was shaky. I can see that they wanted to do this strong south push. It's dangerous. You're walking into a bit of a crossfire. But RBIS was ready. All of their tanks were held back far enough to the point where their opponent, where Timed Out had to cross a rather large distance in order to begin that. Then they stop at the corners. They didn't continue going around. And Matt Knight, while he did the best job he could up north in that KV-5, was not able to pull the attention needed onto him and away from his allies who were the softer, lower health targets.
And that focused fire is so important. It is such a very quick thing to try to make right and to try to command. It has to be instilled in all the different players. You know this as a former professional. You still play tanks at a professional level.
I'm getting a little rusty, I feel, but there are some times when I feel like, oh, I still got it. But yeah.
But even when you play the random battles, which is 15 on 15, different than the esports format that we play here, the 7x54, it is a concept that's like, hey, this guy's low, kill him. I mean, it's the first target you should adapt to, should focus to.
Although there are really cool high-level strategies to play with that discipline. When you have players who are going to hold the shot for that lower level, that lower health player, and wait for him to come back around the corner to get the kill, that person that's low health can actually just back off, wait, and then have everyone else come out while they hold shells. So what happens is they force you to spread damage. It can be very difficult to play around, but it comes down to track shots, stopping your opponent, immobilizing them, and then being able to work with them
That's
that way.
very significant when you can stop an opponent in its tracks. Rather than escape, stop and let a teammate get the kill. Battle number 6 between RBIS versus Timed Out is about to begin on Himmelsdorf. What do we have for tanks, Randall?
Looks like we've got 3 5100s, 2 KV-5s, and 2 Tiger 1s for RBIS, which is a beefy attack lineup. Tiger 1's brought for hit points, and KV-5's brought for hit points, 5100s to be the big damage dealers. On the other side, Timed Out is going to have IS-3s on defense with 2 5100s and 2 ISs instead of anything like T-29s. What does this indicate? This indicates that they're not going to play in Northwest defense traditionally, that they're going to go for some alternate strategy.
Battle 7 between these two teams. RBIS leads 4-2. And we are seeing Timed Out move away from the northwest corner. They're heading closer to the hillside down the 7 line as they approach from the Charlie Delta and possibly into the Echo lane here. But they're setting up for a different type of defensive strategy, and I like it.
It's a trap. What they're going to do is they're going to wait for that 8-line push. Then everyone's going to move around the corner, just absolutely destroy whoever's in front. And then you'll see flanks from Cess, possibly Gandorfo and Raul, while the 3 in the middle, game over, Enrique Dante. And who is that with him?
Game over?
Matt Knight and Nip. Oh, I didn't see Nip there. Also, those guys are going to move out as the main attack force and begin using their alpha damage to just obliterate someone. Now there's a little
hit for 2 shots, 749. At first it was 376, and it has become a slight annoyance into a major problem. Precambrian now heading towards cover. Mi Amigo ready to bail him out in case there's a push along the other alley, but there is no commitment yet from Timed Out in that section.
But look at the hill. Oxmathis and Sella and the KV5s have made it up and over, and they have found Raul. They can take him on, but Sella blows the first shot. Oxmathis does not. And now Raul must focus on 2 KV5s who dwarf him in hit points, size, and their ability to just out-DPM him.
And they're going to plug him. They're going to plug him up against the wall, take him out of this fight, but that's 2 against 1 in the north. The rest of these tanks have got to continue to push because the overmatch is going to happen against RBIS to the south. Mi Amigo continuing to fire here. Raul finally goes down, and he's going to be the next 5100 to fall. The one tank you do not want to lose in this scenario.
And that is Mi Amigo. Carbon Ward down as well. And there goes Precam. This is not going well for RBIS.
Akiyama now pushing up against Enrique Dante. Sella right next to him. He is the next tank to fall. Focusing on that 5100 is key right now because of the amount of damage these tanks can do in a short amount of time. Enrique goes down. BR game over on the reload. Gabriel Angelos lands a shot. Sella waiting for the reload. Fires. Once he gets around the corner, gets it. They do not destroy. Game over. And Gandorfo's on his own against 2 tanks. He gets the kill against Akiyama on the reload on his side. KV5 Oxmathis from behind hits for 280 but does not destroy the Gandorfo tank, and Timed Out has so many tanks left alive here.
BR game over. Surprisingly is still alive. There he goes. Gabriel able to take him down, but now Sella is almost down. And he kills. Is that a ram kill for onto Gandorfo? I think that just was.
Seth's going to fall back. Matt Knight trying to cover, and the tables are now turning. Nip 100 is still at large to the north, and he is finished reloading. He engages on Oxmathis. This is a cavalry that Timed Out needed on this flank. He has 2 shots remaining. Seth at such low health, 5 hit points, could be rammed, but Sella and Gabriel Angelos do not have enough HP to spare here. Sella lands a shot against Matt Knight.
Here comes Nip around the corner. He has a shot onto Gabriel, but puts it into Sella first. That was a thin shell. A lot of risk there. 2 shots, 2 kills, or is it? No, it's not going to be.
Nope, Gabriel Angelos falls to Sess and Timed Out in an effective, really effective trap, takes down RBIS.
It was well constructed. That is the kind of play that you only bring when you know your opponent is coming up the 8 line. If they're going up something like trackside, you're not looking at a favorable situation. But I think Timed Out took a little bit of a risk there, predicting what their opponent would bring, and then trying to bring a strategy which would be highly effective against it. It's not a perfect counter. It's very difficult to do that here. But had there not been this KV5 augmentation to the strat, and by that I mean sending KV5s up and over the hill is a weird thing to do, if you think about it, because they're slow.
It takes a very long time.
They managed to have just enough time.
This is where it got really dicey for RBIS because Timed Out knew there's 2 KV5s on our 1 IS3. Oh, we have a complete overmatch. Go attack. And that's what they did.
Focusing down the major damage dealers.
And once you leave the 5100s exposed like this, you are at a disadvantage. I don't care how many tanks you have surrounding an IS-3. Your damage dealers are getting wiped out.
Yeah, and the flanks. If you notice the flanks, which are highly effective from Timed Out, there is a way in a city map to deal with being flanked like that, which is knowing when you are going to be attacked from perhaps the north, the south, east, west, whichever street there's a corner that they're coming from, you find another corner to go around. Of course, had the 5100s recognized that they were going to be surrounded and there was going to be a crossfire on them, we would have seen perhaps forward is the best direction. Mi Amigo, you're seeing where he is, Gabriel, Akiyama, Precam. If they'd all just gone forward and engaged on Matt Knight and Enrique, they would have had a better result because then you would have had the tanks to the immediate south without targets. They would have had nothing to shoot at and they would have been out of the fight for a little while, giving RBIS the ability to then get the momentum they needed. It's a very difficult situation, though.
It's kind of a funny scenario where Timed Out's going, I hope this trap works. And once they saw the 2 KV5s, they went, oh, it totally worked. And they went for the push. A great series between these 2 teams as we move on to battle number 8. Timed Out must win this in order to take it to a tiebreaker. If RBIS has an effective attack, they will take the series. What do we have for tanks, Randall?
All right, we have 3 5100s, 2 KV5s, 2 Tiger 1s for RBIS. Same thing as last time, that beefy lineup, lots of hit points for their attack. Timed Out on the defense is doing the same strategy. Now, if they do the northwest defense as they have in the past, I'm not confident in its success. It's too light, your opponent has more hit points, they can trade evenly and come out ahead. Now, I did say the same thing about Timed Out's attempted attack, about having more hit points, but we also have seen failure there. So Timed Out must handle this slightly differently than a simple west side defense. That no longer cuts it, because teams are starting to figure out how to more effectively win in that engagement.
Raul holds down the Delta line. Not necessarily as standard as we've seen other teams use the northwest position, but Timed Out, not going for the same strategy as last time. A little bit different compared to Prohorovka. That trap was effective.
It was, and it appears to have worked on RBIS to at least scare them. They're going to have to waste a little bit of time. Now Oxmathis, Sella, moving up and over the Himmelsdorf hill on the castle side, are going to end up in the far back row down the 0 line. No, they're not. They're going to stop. Okay. And I think RBIS is playing this more conservatively, which, if Timed Out's current positions with Raul work out, you can see where Raul is on, what is it, Delta 4, looking across the way. Could see Gabriel and Precam move up. If they get a little too aggressive, Raul can get some damage in. Cess, looking at her position, hidden, holding back just slightly, and ready to come and help Raul if he's pressured, but while also not revealing that he has any backup. Nip, though, is someone I'm a little worried about in that 5100.
To give you an update on the non-broadcasted match, Top Tier was able to 5-1 defeat. That's the match score, 5-1 against Penguin Mafia. So Top Tier gets another win tonight.
Now, while that happened, looks like Gabriel crossing to the north did take 1 shell of fire. He's down to 1,073. Precam is pinned, and lucky for him is, I believe, bounced a shell, or maybe even 2 currently, and is undamaged. Carbon Board, Akiyama, Smiley, those big damage dealers for RBIS are holding back farther to the south, while we have those KV5s, Oxmathis and Sella, getting ready to go forward onto the north cap, which shows that RBIS' strategy is directed towards that northwest defense, towards that camping position, but Timed Out is not quite playing that traditional style. They are doing something slightly more aggressive. And Nip, while I was worried about him a minute ago, if this pans out with very strong push from RBIS in the north, Nip could come in as a crucial flank or crossfire.
Timed Out's going to have to get ready as RBIS begins the engagement here just past the 4-minute mark. Sella and Oxmathis will move all the way to the cover, and they will see the 5100 alone. Nip 100 will get 2 great shots against Sella, and Game Over pushes around the corner to punish Oxmathis, who's still exposed down that center alley, and he gets a shot against
Look
Nip
at
100.
Raul, though. That IS-3 got ripped apart. Same with Cess. They're moving forward to try and grab stronger positions, but they're not coming out as well in these trades. First, there goes Oxmathis, and now Akiyama, Precam, falling over each other to try and get Raul.
Sella holding the line as long as he can behind the dead husk, excuse me, of his tank. That his teammate was using earlier. Gandorfo able to escape barely with any health points, and Precambrian shuts him down. Gabriel Angelos accidentally fires into his teammate there at Precambrian, and Game Over takes down Precambrian as Raul takes down Smiley. The tanks continue to fall, and a lot of tracks and other damage modules happening for all these tankers. Raul falls to Akiyama. RBIS still at a disadvantage here with the amount of tanks still left alive and the hit points still on the tanks.
But Akiyama from the south, that's a little bit of damage in there that might not be punished. No, Enrique Dante is about loaded, but Akiyama gets his last 2 shells out before his opponent is loaded. Enrique takes him down.
And Nip 100 and Enrique Dante take down 2 more of those RBIS tanks. Carbon Ward and Gabriel Angelos, the last hope left alive for RBIS in this battle. If Timed Out does this as the defenders, we'll move on to a tiebreaker between these 2 teams. Gabriel Angelos waits for it. Carbon Ward.
Shell! Onto the 5100, he gets another shot in, but Nip does get it. Gabriel not gonna, barely alive, but
2 bounce shells, but still can't get it. He's gonna push in, saying, come at me, IS-3, but Nip 100 is gonna close it out, and Timed Out is gonna take us to a tiebreaker. Again, their second tiebreaker this week, this time against RBIS.
Not bad at all. It's really impressive. Everything I'm seeing from both teams is comprehensive, high level, very well thought through and planned. I think that both teams spent a lot of time looking at each other's replays, looking at I think RBIS mostly looks at the simp match of earlier this week, and then Timed Out has a lot more footage, I think, that is worth watching. And so they've pulled out some strategies which are not wholly unique. These are slight variations upon good concepts, which most teams playing Himmelsdorf understand in their execution on them, while at times worrying and chaotic, have been successful. And I think that's where they seem to thrive, within that chaos.
Bit of a flair on the fundamentals.
Yes.
Right? That's why fundamentals are so important. You know them innately, and then from there you can start to add more creativity, like we saw from Timed Out. Timed Out did more damage throughout the series, and so they get to choose whether to attack or defend. And on Ruinberg, which will be our tiebreaker.
Okay. But what side are they going to choose? It looks like...
They're going to defend. They have chosen to defend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a bad choice. Now, if we look back to the last tiebreaker we had on Ruinberg, I believe that was the Simp Timed Out match. And things were a little bit flipped around in that situation.
Yes,
so...
they were. Yes, they were. And Timed Out really effectively used the F Crossroads in their matchup against Simp on Tuesday. And I feel that's where Simp was starting to get really tripped up of taking too much damage and getting caught off guard in that section of the map. If RBIS learned anything from Tuesday, is not to get trapped in that section and not to send tanks down to slowly scout using IS-3s or 5100s when it's not effective at all.
They need to meet their opponent with a heavier lineup. Timed Out can't do the same thing. They also have to bring a heavier lineup. I think both teams are going to bring armor and try and bully. At least Timed Out will.
Well, here we go. Ruinberg is going to be the tiebreaker map between RBIS and Timed Out, tied up 4-4 in our tiebreaker. Randall, this is it. What do we have for tanks?
Looks like we've got RBIS with a 110, two 1390s, three RU-251s, and a T-37. Let's see if they can execute upon the same style that Simp was attempting to bring. While Timed Out, two 5100s, three IS-3s, an RU-251, and a T-37. The same strat that they brought just the other day. And the opening move from RBIS looks like it's going to be a charge forward into the open.
And Timed Out, spawning from the northern side as the defenders. We'll head across the TIE Fighter. It's what we call this section of the map. You can see it. It's the TIE Fighter kind of angled up in its flight pattern here.
And there's the spotting. We've got everything from RBIS on the map. Shots fired and no connections yet onto the RBIS tanks as they make their way into the Delta Village. Grab control, begin the screen. And I think they might push on and try and catch tanks one by one. It looks like they've found Matt Knight going deep, but he is unsupported and needs to leave immediately. I don't think he has enough of anything nearby.
Now taking significant damage on both sides. Gabriel Angelos and Precambrian start to lose health very quickly, but Precambrian is going to be loaded. He fires it at Enrique. That's the next target. He wants one more shot. He gets it, and Carbonward cleans it up. A sacrifice coming from Precambrian. However, the rest of Timed Out are now moving into the Delta Village to try to overmatch the tanks that took too much damage in that engagement. And Gandorfo is now getting attacked. Sella could help break up the rear along the F Crossroads, but it's a little bit too late for him to punish those tanks that were moving across the open road, and Carbon Ward and Akiyama are in trouble.
I'm worried about RBIS. They're not trading up, and they do not have the hit points to trade evenly, which it looks like they are right now. Raul's about reloaded, but Cess is going to take him down. Now it's Oxmathis, Akiyama, Sella. Sella is at full health, but he is way out of this fight. He has done some damage, but the point of his tank was to deal much, much more than this before this came about.
Yes, but now he is surrounded and is at half health. Sella trying to distract and cannot destroy BR. Game over. 18 hit points left.
Oxmathis from south gets the shot. Saves Sella for a little bit longer. He is going to start taking more fire, but Oxmathis is placing his shells perfectly. Next into Nip for 234, and Oxmathis is on the reload.
And he's the last hope for RBIS as the attackers to take down the three remaining Timed Out tanks. Nip 100 has 4 shells, and both the IS-3s are loaded. This is going to be an incredible fight for Oxmathis if he's able to do it here. Gandorfo and Nip now moving as the defenders towards the south to try to head off Oxmathis' position. He will be reloaded in about 15 more seconds.
Just about there. Now, he has 328 hit points, and he is spotted.
Gandorfo sees, cannot connect. And
Nip
now
has an
he
angle.
is loaded. Oxmathis may return fire, but he gets hit for 304.
And tracked in the open, loses momentum. Nip follows it up.
And timed out, comes back from the deficit and gets a victory. Technically, their second victory this entire season.
And they managed to do it against Simp and now RBIS, which is astounding, the kind of turnaround this team is seeing right now. It's not the kind of win that's really putting RBIS in their place, you know, saying that we got some kind of like 5-3 win, but a tiebreaker is so impressive based on what we've seen throughout this season. It contrasts everything up until this week.
Now, unfortunately for Timed Out, though, it's not a full victory. Because it's a tiebreaker, they only earn 2 league points compared to 3. The loser of this series, RBIS, will take home 1 league point, but that may still hurt Timed Out because of the amount of losses, staggering losses they've had in the Gold League. For them to attempt to come back now, which is still phenomenal and an excellent story, and a lot of people from all over the world, but especially Brazil, is going to be rooting for them. They need to get full victories and not tiebreaker victories.
You're absolutely right. Sitting at the bottom of the standings with these other teams climbing over each other constantly, you're climbing up through that mess.
Yeah.
You have to go through all of that. There's not a lot of time left in this season for them to come back. And I need to calculate this later, but based on their next matches, I would feel skeptical that they're even going to be able to make it to relegation.
They only have 4 more matches left, too.
And everyone else still does as well. So they might find themselves getting some wins, but unable to catch up because they've lost so many already.
Well, that does it for our first matchup. Our next matchup, Simp versus the Cunninghams, begins after this. Stay tuned.